wrote his own legend in blood and cipher, and for a terrifying decade, he held the entire state of California hostage with a pen. This is not just the story of a killer, but of a ghost of phantom who wove his identity into a complex tapestry of violence, coded messages, and public taunts, ensuring his name would never truly die, even as his face remained forever hidden in the shadows. Our story begins not with a bang, but with a whisper on the wind. A young couple stealing a moment of peace on a warm summer night, unaware they were about to become the opening chapter in America's most infamous unsolved mystery. It was December 20th, 1968, in Vallejo, California. 17-year-old David Faraday and 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen were on their first date, parked in his car on a secluded lover's lane known as Lake Herman Road. The world was quiet. The future stretched out before them, a promise yet to be fulfilled. Then, another car pulled up. Headlights cut through the darkness. Doors opened, and the tranquil night was shattered by the precise, mechanical sound of gunfire. David was shot, execution style in the head, while still in the driver's seat. Betty Lou, fleeing in sheer terror, was gunned down before she could make it 10 yards, her body riddled with 5 bullets. The crime was brutal, senseless, and, for the Vallejo police, utterly baffling. There was no motive, no suspect, just 2 young lives extinguished under a cold, indifferent sky. The case was growing cold when, 6 months later, another couple, Darlene Farron and Michael Mago, were attacked in a similar fashion at Blue Rock Springs Park, just a few miles away. The gunman emerged from the darkness, a powerful flashlight beam pinning them in place before he opened fire with a 9mm pistol. Darlene was killed instantly. Michael, despite being shot multiple times, miraculously survived. But this time, the killer had made a mistake. Or perhaps, he had planned it all along. Less than an hour after the shooting, a call came into the Vallejo Police Department. A calm, male voice said, "I want to report a double murder." He gave the precise location of the Blue Rock Springs attack and then, with chilling nonchalance, added, "I also killed those kids last year." He hung up. The hunt was on, but the hunter was now introducing himself. 3 days later, the Vallejo Times-Herald received a letter. "Dear editor," it began, "I am the killer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas." The letter contained details of both murders that only the killer could know, but it also contained something else, a cipher, a complex code of symbols and letters, split into 3 parts. The writer demanded it be printed on the front page, or he would cruise sick around all weekend killing lone people in the night. He signed it with a symbol, a circle bisected by a cross, like a rifle's crosshairs. The press, seizing on the dramatic signature, gave him a name, the Zodiac. The cipher was cracked within a week by a brilliant Salinas schoolteacher and his wife. It was a rambling, egotistical, and misspelled manifesto. "I like killing people because IT is so much fun. It read it is more fun than killing wild game in the forest. Sick, because man is the most dangerous animal of all." The Phantom now had a voice, and it was arrogant, cruel, and hungry for fame. He was no longer just a murderer. He was a performer, and the entire Bay Area was his captive audience. The terror escalated on a sunny September afternoon at Lake Berryessa. College students, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, were picnicking by the water. They saw a figure approaching from a distance, a strange apparition in the bright daylight. As he drew closer, their confusion turned to sheer terror. The man was wearing a black executioner's hood, a bib-like cloth emblazoned with the crosshairs symbol. He was not trying to hide his identity. He was presenting a brand. He calmly informed them he was an escaped convict from Montana and needed their money and car. After tying them up, he paused. "You know," he said, his voice muffled by the hood, "I'm going to have to stab you people." The short, natural line of dialogue was a death sentence. He proceeded to savagely stab them both, multiple times. Cecilia would later die from her wounds. Before leaving, he used a felt-tip pen to draw his symbol on their car door, along with the dates of the attacks. It was a signature, a work of art for his twisted portfolio. The Phantom's audacity knew no bounds. His next target was a taxi driver in the heart of San Francisco. Paul Stein, a 29-year-old part-time student, was shot in the back of the head in the Tony Presidio Heights neighborhood. This time, The killer was seen by multiple witnesses. The police dispatcher broadcast a description of the suspect. A white male, heavy build, with curly, reddish-brown hair. Astonishingly, a man matching that description was seen by 2 patrolmen just blocks away. Walking calmly and deliberately, they drove right past him, assuming he was just another pedestrian. The Zodiac had slipped through the net once again, vanishing into the San Francisco fog. The letters and taunts continued to flood newsrooms. He sent a blood-soaked piece of Paul Steiny's shirt as a trophy to the San Francisco Chronicle. Proving his involvement, he threatened to shoot the tires out of school buses, sending entire communities into a panic. He created more complex ciphers, one of which, the 340-character cipher, would remain unbroken for over 51 years. The investigation was a sprawling, chaotic mess. Suspects were interviewed and discarded. A young man named Arthur Lee Allen became the prime suspect for many investigators, a convicted child molester with a deep-seated hatred for people, an interest in cryptography, and a Zodiac brand watch. He was intelligent, volatile, and looked remarkably like the famous police composite sketch, but the evidence was always just out of reach. A partial palm print from the Stein cab didn't match. Handwriting analysis was inconclusive. The case was a mountain of maybes and what-ifs. The courtroom drama for the Zodiac case never happened in the traditional sense. Instead, it played out in the court of public opinion, through the headlines he commanded and the fear he cultivated. The real legal battles were fought over potential suspects like Allen, with investigators building circumstantial cases that were compelling but ultimately insufficient. The tension wasn't in a single gavel strike, but in the slow, grinding frustration of a puzzle with a missing piece. The climax, the shocking revelation, came not from an arrest, but from a breakthrough half a century later. In 2020, a team of private citizens, including retired law enforcement and code-breaking experts, finally cracked the Zodiac's 340 cipher. The message inside was another arrogant taunt, but it confirmed his motive was not robbery or revenge, but a pure, unadulterated desire for a legacy built on terror. "I hope you are having lots of fun and trying to catch me," he'd read. "I am not afraid of the gas chamber." But the most profound turning point was the slow, dawning realization that the Zodiac was not the super genius he pretended to be. He was a meticulous planner, yes, but also a man of mediocre intelligence, plagued by misspellings and a fragile, narcissistic ego that craved validation. His power was not in his brilliance, but in his utter lack of humanity, his ability to cast a long, dark shadow while remaining a ghost. He forced an entire generation to look over its shoulder to see a monster in every passing car, and he proved that the most terrifying monsters are not the ones we see, but the ones we are forced to imagine. The letters eventually stopped. The killings ceased. Arthur Lee Allen died in 1992, never charged. Dozens of other names have been put forward, but no single person has ever been definitively proven to be the Zodiac. The case remains open, a cold file that burns with unanswered questions. He achieved the immortality he so desperately craved, not as a man, but as an idea, a phantom whose whispered threats still echoed from the pages of his letters. He promised us slaves in the afterlife, but all he left behind was a ghost story, written in a code we are still trying to break. If stories like this keep you hooked, hit subscribe for more.